Okay, if everybody's ready to take their seats, we're just waiting for our planning solicitor, who I think is he's a bit tied up outside. Who's missing from next to you, Steve? Oh, Anne. Is Anne not here?
No, apologies. What I had to do between trying to
Chair, I know what this is about, and I am very, very concerned about it. I really am. In fact, I'm thinking of leaving the meeting. That's how concerned I am. I've had it confirmed by two successive county council solicitors and the former chief executive of this council that members are entitled to see and know all the information that goes through this council. So I'm still thinking about what to do about it, but I am very concerned about it. That was advice from well-qualified people.
Well,
Unless something's changed
can we wait
since.
until we get advice from our own monitoring officer?
Yeah, well, the monitoring officer was the chief executive at one time of this council, and that was his advice as well.
Yes.
What has changed since then, I'd like to know.
Well,
Somebody
well,
could let me know
well,
sometime, I'd appreciate
We'll
it.
await that advice. Okay, so,
Yeah, sorry, actually,
Oh.
we can't. No, sorry, Chair. I do still have to come back at this stage because obviously it's been brought up at this particular point. As you'll be aware from the agenda, we're going to go into Port B later on in this meeting. I believe that's what you're alluding to, Councillor Ragg. I've spoken to the Monitoring Officer on Friday, and our view is that only members of the committee need to be given advice in relation to an appeal that is affecting that side. There's no need for anybody else who's not part of the decision-making body to be able to hear and listen to that advice. Because if they were to go off and give then any feedback to anybody outside of this committee as to what advice you'd be given, then they would be in breach of their professional code of conduct. Now, in order to avoid that, there's simply no need for them to have to listen because they cannot provide any steer to the officers as to what to do because they were not part of that decision-making body. In fact, actually, it puts them in a worse position because they then can't actually go out and help their constituents themselves, which they would be able to do had they not been privy to some private advice that the committee is entitled to get. If anybody is dealing with a case and they are getting their own legal advice or own advice from professional consultants, they do not go around telling everybody else what their case is. It simply does not happen. So there's absolutely no need for anybody apart from the committee members to listen to any advice this afternoon in Port B. And that is what I have agreed with the monitoring officer when I spoke to her on Friday. There's absolutely nothing untoward whatsoever. If you feel the need to have to leave the meeting, that is your choice. But I can assure you, professionally, what we are doing is absolutely spot on. Thank you.
Chair, that implies that members can't be trusted, and I resent that very much so, because this is private and confidential, doesn't go outside the meeting. I know I've allayed a couple of people's fears, including one of the ward members on this, that there is nothing sinister or untoward about it at all. And in fact, there's one who was on Facebook who seems to have gone very quiet now. So I understand that, the need for confidentiality, but to assume or presume that a member might leak it, I think is totally wrong. And I think it's a slur on his character.
Chair, I certainly don't want to...
I won't be leaving the meeting. I'll be staying here because it's quite a minor thing, in my view.
Exactly. I certainly don't want to get into to and fro with you, Councillor Ragg, but you've brought this up now in the public section of the meeting, so I have to obviously respond to it in the public section of the meeting. There's nothing untoward at all with what's going on. And nobody's suggesting for a moment that if members are going to go off and they're going to start telling somebody else behind the committee's back, nobody's saying that for one moment. What I am saying is that there is no point in them listening to that advice because they cannot do anything with it. So if that's the case, why are they even wanting to listen to it? They cannot, purely say, cannot do anything with it. And if it puts them in a worse position because if they hadn't listened to the advice, they can help their constituents. If they do listen to the advice, they can't. So that's it. That's my say on it now. I hope we can move on, Chair.
Yep, we will move on.
I just wanted to say, Chair, obviously we listened to our experts' advice and we should take that, as has been stated several times before today.
Okay, so we move on to agenda item 11, planning application 250100 FUL, land northeast of Grange Close, Limpston, pages 103 to 127 on your agenda pack. So just checking, yes, it's Mrs. Ormsby is presenting the report on this one. I'm sure you'll be familiar with this one anyway.
Good afternoon, members. So the application to consider is for the erection of 2 detached dwellings with integral double garages to include associated hard and soft landscaping at land northeast of Grange Close, Limpston. This is the application site. So this is Grange Close. and the proposed access is using an existing access track which leads down into this application site. And members may well remember the site. It was considered by committee not very long ago in December, I believe, and the committee decision was to refuse the planning application. And the reason for refusal, I've put on the screen there. It was a single reason for refusal, and it was that the dwellings, by virtue of the design, orientation, scale and massing, would result in development that is out of character with the surrounding area, contrary to policy D1 of the East Devon local plan and policies 6 and 7 of the Lympstone neighbourhood plan and paragraph 135 of the NPPF. The application that has now been submitted to us is identical to the application that was refused in December. So for the committee or for the council to come to an alternative view, it must be because we consider that there have been material change in circumstances since that decision was made, either through a change to the development itself or other circumstances. So that's the key thing that members need to decide today. I will just run through, I'll try and do it relatively briefly because I think you are probably likely quite well familiar. Just run through the sites. So this is the application site, again, shown on Google Maps. And the site did have planning permission for a single dwelling granted in 2023, which accepted the principle of development on this site. The application site has also been considered through the HELAR process in the call for sites when we were looking at housing sites for the emerging local plan. And it was considered for 6 dwellings, but it was felt that because of the site constraints, trees, ecology, etc., that would have been too many for the site. The proposer then dropped the proposal down to 3, but only sites of 5 or more were considered as site allocations for the local plan. So this dropped away, not because it was necessarily decided that no development was acceptable, but it wasn't going to be acceptable for 5 or more. So that's why it's not in. And if it did come through for a smaller amount, then it would be through the windfall process. But nevertheless, the site current is outside of the development, the built-up area boundary for Lympstone. So this shows the proposal and the 2 dwellings, as you can see, cited on the site. They're 2-storey dwellings, and number 10 and most of the properties on Grange Close are bungalows. So here are the elevations. So they're substantial. The form of the buildings is quite traditional, pitched roofs, 2-storey, but with a more contemporary approach to materials, window shapes, sizes within them. And the external walls, so it's a proposer of mix of brick and oak cladding with aluminium framed windows and artificial slate proposed for the roofing, black Lindub guttering down the eaves line and down pipes. And these are the elevations for plot 2. And each of the dwelling would be served with an air source heat pump. So this shows you the context of the site as seen from Grange Close, because this is numbers 9 and 11 Grange Close, which are elevated above the level of the road, bungalows clad in render brick and tile. And this is numbers 10 and 12 further to the east, which are larger properties, brick and tile with roof pitch facing the road. They're obviously set down below the roof level with a larger roofscape and a lower eaves line. So the character of the built environment generally is it is varied. There isn't a singular style of building or a singular. It's not predominated. There's a mixture of two-storey and bungalow developments within the site. This is the access that would be used for highway access, and these are photographs around the site with the trees and hedgerows on the site boundaries to be retained. And what you can see from all of the boundary screening is the fact that the site is actually very well contained and is not particularly visible from outside the site. This is again looking down the access track to the entrance. So even from Grange Close, if you're standing at this point here, sorry, the entrance is back here, you would see very little of the development because of the change in topography and because of the way that the site is screened by trees and hedging. These are the floor plans of the dwellings, so quite substantial dwellings in themselves. And this is the site layout with landscape buffers up along this north-western boundary. Oh, sorry. So this is the landscape buffer along the site here, and then trees being retained around the edges, and also existing hedgerows retained. So the issue that members need to consider here. So there had been objections to this, and there are objections to this on the grounds of impact on neighbours, potential sort of for overlooking or overbearing impact on neighbours, drainage issues, impact on trees, etc. When this came to committee before, members were satisfied in all of those respects, except for the matter that I mentioned previously, that they felt that the design scale and massing of the dwellings was unacceptable and did not fit in with the character of the area. Hence, the proposal was refused. So it's acknowledged that that now needs to be overcome if the council was to come to an alternative view. The officers acknowledge that it's been refused on those grounds, so it acknowledged that there is some harm, that it does not, because that's the decision this council has made, it does not. The scale, massing and density is out of character with the surrounding area. However, the material change in circumstance now compared to December is that in December, the council could demonstrate a 4-year housing land supply, and that was all that needed to be evidenced. And that decision was made not applying the tilted balance in favour of sustainable development. The situation now is that the council is required to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, and we have a significant shortfall. Our 5-year housing land supply set at 2.95 years. In this context, paragraph 11B of the MPPF requires that the council should only refuse planning permission for sustainable development where the adverse impacts of doing so would significantly outweigh the benefits of delivering houses. So the officer view is that we acknowledge that it has been deemed that the scale, massing and design of this development is not in keeping with the character of the area. But then balancing that against the fact that the site itself is well screened, so there will be limited views into this site, combined with the fact that we now must apply the tilted balance in favour of sustainable development, the officer recommendation is that there has been a material change in circumstance that now weighs the balance in favour of granting planning permission for this development, hence the recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We don't have a speaker. Oh, we should have. Yes. Sorry, Hannah Cameron. Oh, you're just finding it. Okay, you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, members. I speak today on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Ian White, RBL Homes, in relation to this application. And as we've already spoken about today, you will all no doubt recognise this application because it was heard here in November. In considering this revised application, I would like to bring your attention to a few key points. Firstly, it's our case that the dwellings are of a high quality and sustainable design that incorporate both traditional and modern design features. There's a great variation in the design styles in Lympstone, and the Neighbourhood Plan Policy 7 supports new development of individual design, recognising that there is room for new innovative design and change. Whilst the proposed dwellings are large, they can be accommodated within the site and appropriately utilise the site topography. They would equate to an overall density of 5.7 dwellings per hectare, so a very low density development. Secondly, it's our case that the dwellings would not be out of character with the surrounding area. The site is visually enclosed, as we've heard from your officer and seen with the photographs presented. The site would be set back some 45 metres from Grange Close and simply would not be visible within the street scene. Lympstone is characterised by large detached dwellings on the edge of the village, and this development would be no different and would be sympathetic and in accordance with the existing character and pattern of development. Thirdly, as you've heard, since the decision in November, there has been a material change in the policy circumstances with the revised NPPF. Your council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, and the published position of 2.95 years shows a significant shortfall. The presumption in favour of sustainable development applies, and a significant weight should be given to this and the provision of housing. It is also the case that the Regulation 19 published draft of your revised local plan allocates the whole of the site within the settlement boundary, which is a change from the current circumstances. Finally, I would like to make members aware that there is a live appeal for the refused application, which includes an application for a full award of costs. The applicant has confirmed in writing to your officer that this appeal will be withdrawn if this application is approved today. I ask you to carefully consider the recommendation of your officer and support this proposal for 2 high-quality, low-carbon, self-built homes, and I thank you for your time.
You want to ask a question of the agent? Are you able to answer a question? Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. So if we should pass this today, when will your client be starting to build? Is it sort of fairly shortly, is your plan?
That is the intention, yes, and the detailed application reflects that. So we sought to address all of the pre-commencement conditions that formed part of the original outline application. So there are no pre-commencement conditions on this, should you recommend approval. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, committee, well, we can go into questions now. Any more questions? Nope. Oh, Councillor Gazzard.
Yes. Apologies if I've missed it again in the paperwork. Are there any 106 payments with this application, or SIL, should I say?
So the houses would be liable to SIL. unless they were self-builds, then they could claim a self-build exemption, but they ordinarily would be liable for SIL, yes. And there's no Section 106 proposed, is not within the threshold for affordable housing contributions.
There is also a contribution because of it being in the protected area of the Pebblebed Heaths. So 367 per dwelling. Okay then, no further questions, so we'll go into debate. Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. I've got no problem with this. I didn't have any problem with this last time, so I would be very happy to propose it, again, with a condition that 200 litres of water butts per bedroom. I also think we should be putting on solar panels, because there's none on it. And again, if we're taking climate change seriously, and if we're trying to get our carbon down, which you say we're going to, why aren't we insisting on this? And I think as for it's not in keeping with the area, you're not going to see it. You know, it's very simple, isn't it? Again, bungalows, they're a thing of the past. We don't have the room. And if we want to have bungalows, it means we've got to go further out into the countryside. So suck it up, we've got to go up. And that's as simple as it is. So having two stories there, especially on this enclosed site, I just think is just makes sense. The only thing I still have concerns about is saying that this is self-build. The whole point of self-build and so that they don't contribute to SIL. And again, I looked up the SIL cost on this at 400 and something metres per, £70,000 a house, the SIL charges. So it's a huge amount of money that will be going into our, not only the parish council will be getting £17,500 pounds, 25%, whatever, for their local things, but obviously East Devon for other things that we want to do and provide because of this sort of development. So I really think I would like to make sure the officers look at this really carefully. The whole point of self-build SIL is that the self-builder comes along, goes through this rigmarole of getting planning permission, worry of it, the hassle of it, the finance of the plot, etc. Whereas we've just heard, they're planning to build it straight away afterwards. And at the end of it, they've done all the rules of it. So again, we really need to get to the bottom of this. This is about saving money, in my opinion. And I really think that we don't want to allow this on this sort of thing. This money must come, as you say, there's no 106. This money must come into the community because we need it to do other things with it. And this is moving away from the local plan, not the new emerging one, I know, but this is slightly outside the boundary. And again, it was brought up last time, one of the reasons they tried to stop it was the water going in the brooks, but we obviously listened to the experts, so we didn't use that as an excuse. So I'm just pointing that out, but I'd be very happy to recommend approval on this. Thank you.
I think what South West Water say about the smart water butts is they're number one on their list, but they then say infiltration and they've gone for infiltration.
But again, Chair, that's not a condition. It's a suggestion from South West Water that the officers, the applicant needs to show that they're doing these different things, but it's not, we can just put it in.
Okay. So you want that added as a condition?
If the committee allows it, and Wendy allows it, and anyone else allows it, and Mike.
We have the applicant here as well, so, or the agent anyway.
Can we ask the agent, Chair, while the agent is here?
Would you like to come up to the microphone? Thank you. Thanks for coming back.
In relation to the drainage strategy, we have already put together a very, very detailed drainage strategy that works up how surface water will be managed, and that is via attenuation basins within the site. So I would be hesitant to say that we want to start changing that at this point because all the calculations have been done.
Sorry, this is in excess of that, so I totally agree. And I think I think it's really good what you've done. But again, this council believes, I believe, that at the end of the day, prevention is better than trying to cure the problem. So by putting in the water butts, which again, you're talking about on a 4-bedroom house, 4 water butts around the house, whatever, to catch it. No real extra cost. I think they're about 35 quid each, whatever, unless you want to put posh ones in on a big posh house. So at the end of that, it's just think, and you can use them if you put in larger ones for water in the garden. Great thing to do.
Well, we'll leave that one to the applicant. What about solar panels? Are they planning to install panels? I'd have thought on a kind of luxury house like that, that would be a given.
At this stage, I can't confirm 100% yes or no, but I'm sure my client would be very happy to include solar panels. They do pride themselves on building to a greater, meeting a higher standard than the existing building regs, which is already quite a high standard for sustainability. So they are committed for them to be very low carbon. So I don't see that that would be an issue, but whether it's necessary for it to be conditioned as such, I guess it's up to yourselves.
Thank you. Okay. So do we condition that, or shall we require a sustainability assessment as we did on the previous one?
So, I mean, my advice to members is as before, that, but I suppose it's slightly different here in the fact that the agent has been here and hasn't come up with any reasons as to why they wouldn't be achievable. I was more concerned on the previous scheme as to the practicalities of delivering them, and if we conditioned something that wasn't actually achievable, that could be more problematic. As the agent has indicated, they don't think there would be any objection to them. If members feel that that's something they feel is necessary to make the development acceptable, the condition could be added. The alternative would be to require a sustainability statement which considers how the use of renewable energy can be maximised within the site.
I think my preference would be for that, because that then leaves the applicant with various options, and just in case solar panels can't be provided for whatever reason, then it gives them other options to achieve the same result. I've got several hands up. Councillor Chamberlain.
Thank you. I won't keep you long. I would prefer to go with the second option on that, the sustainability report. From a point of view of, they're obviously building to a high standard. Should they be doing something like passive house build or whatever they're doing in construction wise, that does have a knock-on effect with the way that those buildings are constructed. So I think if they come back with that report, it would actually be much more beneficial. And from the sounds of it, they really do want to produce them to a high standard. So I'm sure they will come back with something that will be quite fitting with those size properties.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Wragg, did you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I had concerns when this one came before us first, and they haven't gone away. It's outside the build-up area boundary, and it's a departure from the local plan. All right, the neighbourhood plan, Lympstone one, might not carry so much weight now, but even so, that does show that they've been concerned. And I know over the years how concerned Lympstone residents have been about the green wedge between themselves and other areas such as Exmouth. All right, the tilted balance and housing need for such. These aren't going to be affordable houses. 2 detached dwellings with double integral garages. What young person's going to be able to afford that? And I know that property prices in Lympstone have priced young people right out of the market. They couldn't possibly afford to live there. Local people can't afford to live there, and they're becoming holiday homes. And the Limpston we knew years ago is not the Limpston that we know now. And I think anyone who remembers that would agree with that. So I can't support this. I think we have to preserve the character of these villages, these areas, and to build in between them so they eventually join up and they lose their identity, I think is wrong. So I shan't be supporting this application. And
Okay,
that's not sour grapes.
thank you. Well, I'll just say there's no shortage of large executive homes in Limpston as well, so there's quite a lot of it. Councillor Barlow.
Well, just on that point, they've already got permission for one house on this, which would just be one bigger one. And although we don't need bigger houses, we need smaller houses. You have to have bigger houses so that the people in the smaller houses can move up if they wanted to. And I know other people move in. But by putting two on this site, we are helping the situation rather than just having one big one with a bigger garden. So, do you know what? It's not perfect, but it does help the situation in my mind.
I think unfortunately we have to look at these applications as what they are, and I think we might all wish it was something else, but the chances of getting some affordable housing in Limpston is fairly slender, and the definition of affordable in Limpston would probably price most people out anyway. Councillor Haggerty.
Thank you, Chair. Nice to see this one come back. I was one of the people that approved this last time, and it's nice to see it come back. Now, this is in a secluded area. Now, in other plans that we've had brought to the committee before, we've turned down because for different reasons, even though I want to Ottery, really secluded area. But on this occasion, I do support this. I believe it's got a good design to it. It's got good local services, nice houses, double garages. No, it's not going to be for people that got no money. It's going to be people that have some good money. So again, look at another way. You're going to have people with a bit of stature that are going to spend some money in the area as well. I'm personally quite happy with this, and I'd be happy to agree to it or propose it when it goes back.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Howe, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a reason to refuse it. We only refused on one ground last time. We're not talking about all the rest of the reasons why we might or might not like it. There was only the one ground, and that was pretty weak at the best of times. I don't believe we'll get costs against us on that decision and appeal. It's one of those decisions that is not biased in one way or another. It is a balance of a decision that's in your own eyes to view it. So I'm fairly convinced we won't get costs against us, but nevertheless, this is two houses on the edge of an outskirt, beside the built-up area boundary. It complies with everything we need to do, and we have to deliver houses. There are no reasons to refuse it. I wish there was 3 or 4 houses to go here. Absolutely, that would be better. But it is what it is, and I can't see a reason to refuse, so I shall be supporting.
Councillor Matt Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I still have the same problem as I had the first time around. I just don't see this as an acceptable access to 2 properties, but this is not an argument that I feel that we're going to win. I'm not saying that I'm going to support this, but I certainly agree with Councillor Howe that there is very little wriggle room for any chances of refusing this successfully. Just on an extremely minor point to Mrs. Ormsby, I think the HRA payment figure mentioned on page 118 is just ever so slightly wrong.
Okay, we've got 2 different figures apparently. Was it higher or lower on the website?
Oh, it's a tiddly bit lower, but it is different to our mentioned price on the website.
Okay. Righto. Any other members wishing to, Councillor Faithful?
It's a bit off track, but just going back to all this talk about solar panels and things, do we have that sort of thing in our new local plan? I don't know.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Have we had a proposer? Councillor Barlow. And seconded by Councillor Haggerty. Okay. Shall we do the, well, we'll do that first and then adopt the appropriate assessment. So those in favour?
You've got to do the assessment first, Chair.
Oh,
Because it's got to be in place, whichever way. the vote goes.
okay. Yeah, we've got to have the assessment. No, I'll do it from the chair. So from the chair, adopt the appropriate assessment. Those in favour? That's everybody, I think.
That's not
No,
unanimous. Councillor
no,
Bragg.
Councillor
Would you like
Bragg.
to adopt it?
No. Okay. And then the recommendation to approve. Those in favour?
With the additional conditions, yeah.
And those against? And abstentions? 2. Does that add up?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I count 14. 2, 4, 6.
Okay, so that one is carried. So we now need to go into part B. I just want to say, for the benefit of anybody watching this on the live stream, there may be a few, there is nothing sinister about part B. It is never used to kind of safeguard the reputation of the council or to enable dodgy deals to go on behind closed doors. This is purely on a technical matter to do with the appeal and does not mean that we are revisiting the application or anything like that. So, Councillor Collins, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the room as well. So it's Vice Chair, actually, who moves the...
Well, I think it's disgusting. I'm probably one of the most respected people.
Well, I'm sure you are, Councillor Collins, but I assure you that this is for the committee only, and it is a purely technical matter, and is not for any kind of public consumption. And unfortunately, on this occasion, in a Part B in planning, I've had it explained to me, it's not one where all members attend. It is only for members of the planning committee. No, you haven't, because you haven't been to a Part B in a planning committee before. So I assure you there is absolutely nothing sinister going on. There is nothing untoward about this, and I don't think our planning solicitor or our monitoring officer would allow it if it was. So when we'll allow Councillor Hall to read the Part B.
Thank you, Chairman. In conjunction with our standing orders, that under Section 100A, Part 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public, including the press, be excluded from the meeting as exempt information of the description set out on the agenda is likely to be disclosed on balance. The public interest is in discussing this item in private session, Part B. Do I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Haggerty, seconded by Councillor Chamberlain. All those in favour, please? I believe that's unanimous.
Thank you. Okay.